What was your oh crap my life is over my parents are gonna kill me moment you had as a child teen? I broke an old iPod when I was like 5 and I thought it was like thousands of dollars to fix, so I just sat there crying. I was 19 I think, and you would think that is old enough not to have a curfew, or at least have a curfew of midnight or something. Nope, I am a woman and my parents are from the Balkans. I was not supposed to be out after dark, unless I'm with family. This takes place in the US BTW, so I get sick of how strict my parents are and decide to sneak out. My parents always went to bed around 10. I would make sure to be in bed also at the time. Once I was sure they were asleep, I would crawl out my window, carefully make my way across the roof, second story, to the wood pile at the side of our house. It was pretty high, so I would lower myself onto it, then jump from the wood pile to our deck, and go across ours and our neighbor's backyard to the road over. I would make my way to the street corner where one of my friends would pick me up. I did all this to just go bowling, lol, or to go see a movie with my friends. Sometimes we would just go to a friend's house and play Warcraft. It was all really innocent honestly. One night I was at the bowling alley with a group of friends and I got a call. It was my mom calling. My heart dropped into my stomach. I picked up. She said dad woke up and checked in on me, and I wasn't in my room. Where was I because she was coming to pick me up right now? I lied and said I was at a friend's house. I don't know why I lied about being at the bowling alley. I think because it was like 20 minutes out of town? I don't know. She said she was coming to get me. I begged one of my friends to drive me to where I told her I was. It was embarrassing, because my friends tried to understand, but they just couldn't. Why am I going running when my parents called? You're 19, not 12. Stuff along those lines went through their heads and they would say that to me. What they didn't know was that growing up in a foreign family, physical violence is very common. It's not their fault. I didn't talk about it, and honestly, I'm glad most of them have never experienced that sort of home life. So a friend dropped me off, and my mom was waiting and took me home. She was grilling me on where I had been and what I had been doing. Once we got home my dad slapped me around, which was no big deal. But then he went to go get his belt and my mom stopped him, saying I had to work and go to school and it would be obvious I took a beating if I favored my back. I did have some bruises on my face, so I stayed away from my friends till it healed. Which was easy as my parents only let me out of the house for school or work after that. It used to be something I looked back on, now as an adult in my 30s, and laughed about. That time I got caught sneaking out but rereading what I just wrote. Wow, it just wasn't right. Being ashamed of my home life and keeping it secret from my friends. Being hit and controlled. It's crazy the kind of things you normalize, because you have to. I am so sorry you had to deal with that. I hope your life has improved. When I was 16 my dad caught me smoking a bong a couple of friends gifted me a few weeks prior. I thought he would kill me but instead even said something like don't vape in your room in front of my mum with a little grin on his face as he probably exactly knew what has been going on there. I love my dad though. I got caught stealing and when my mom found out she had me get in the car and just started silently driving. I assumed it was to take me to hide my body. My dad caught me stealing a grape at a grocery store when I was 5 and told me I was going to go to heck. My mom caught me smoking pot and she called the cops and had me arrested for possession. I was only 15. I was incarcerated at 15 years old and she wonders why I don't talk to her anymore. Poor guy. Sucks that she made that move. Even if she did it thinking it'll do any good, I can't see how putting a 15-year-old in cuffs could ever be a good thing, especially for some usual shit like weed. I can't imagine the lack of trust you guys must have had after that incident. I know he's scared to tell my mom about anything. When I was a kid my friends and I used to play a game on our trampoline called Ladybug. I don't know why it's called that, so our trampoline had a safety net so you can't fall off. But Ladybug was where one person was on the other side of the net and we had to body check them off. So one day we were playing the game and I body checked the person into a ditch. They broke their arm. I thought I was gonna die. As a kid, my father and I would occasionally take weekend trips a couple hours down the road to see my grandfather and step-grandmother and stay in their house with them. These trips were fun because they were like mini vacations, and both my grandfather and step-grandmother were veritably some of the coolest people you'd ever meet in your life. I actually didn't get to know them until I was half grown. They were a disconnected part of my family. Sometimes my dad would leave me with them for the weekend. My step-grandma had a fully kitted out, for the time, desktop computer in her office at her house. She was computer savvy and much younger than my grandfather. Me being a gamer, I was most definitely interested in her computer, and she let me browse the internet on it sometimes. This was back when a fast internet-enabled computer in the house was less common. One night, when all the adults were doing boring adult stuff and talking in the den, I snuck into the office to use the computer. I didn't have any ill intent at first. Just wanted to browse Cartoon Network or whatever like usual, but that night I then had a fresh thought pop into my brain. I pulled up the very old original version of Google and looked up free P. With my heart pounding, I browsed some sites, all of which were very cringy and tame by today's standards. All the good stuff was hidden with starbursts and lens flares. I looked at the sites for a little while, and then left the room thinking I'd gotten away with it. I didn't know that they could check my history. My grandparents approached me later and told me they knew what I'd done. They asked me to confess and I did, then asked how I thought I should be punished, at which point I told them I was pretty sure my dad was going to be angry and beat my butt when we told him, but predictably I said I didn't think I deserved that. They said I was forgiven and I apologized. My dad didn't spank me for it like I expected him to. I think my grandfather had a private heart-to-heart with him, or either didn't tell him at all. Seems silly in hindsight, but at the time it felt like I'd been caught red-handed with a murder weapon. I signed up for a free P site when I was younger. I used the info on one of my parents' checks to prove I was an adult. Well, after that day I totally forgot about the site and moved on with my life. 3 months later I check my email and to my surprise there is a bill notification. My stomach dropped and I went to tell my dad to avoid any further catastrophe. Apparently the site was only a week free and then it started charging. My parents were charged around $300 by the time I had noticed. Following that was a very awkward and embarrassing conversation, as well as a deserved grounding. Early 80s. Father had a film projector for P. I was partaking one day off from school and the garage door started to open. No way I could get everything cleaned up in time, so I threw everything in my closet. He just came home for lunch. He was aware I was up to something cause everything else in the house was off and dark, but he couldn't tell what. Never touched it again, and I started leaving the downstairs TV on as a cover. Definitely the time she caught me smoking weed in the stairwell with a friend. She was threatening to take my computer, but thankfully we had people boarding with us at the time and they got her calmed down. In the end, that friend couldn't come over anymore but I pretty much got away with it. When I was 16 I was going through the emo punk phase and I decided on day that I wanted to put colored streaks in my hair. So, I went to Walgreens and bought this semi-permanent red dye for dark hair, because I had no idea how to bleach my hair. I get home, apply the dye and think I'm going to look so awesome that it'll be worth it if my parents get P. I had no idea what I was doing and instead of ending up with red streaks thought my hair I ended up with a huge red splotch at the top of my head because all dye clumped together or something. It looked terrible and was no longer worth getting in trouble for. The next morning I see my mom and she takes one look at my hair and bursts into laughter and tells me, "Wow, you really fricked that up, didn't you?" She wasn't mad. She thought it was hilarious and after a bit of teasing she went to Walgreens and got me a box of black hair dye so I could cover it up and not have to go outside looking like that. I was pulled over going 100 miles per hour in a 65 zone while driving my girlfriend to her concert and I was still on my graduated driver's license. Basically limits to how many passengers you can have for a year or so after you get your license. $500 ticket and I ended up losing my license for 2 or 3 months, which was the cop and judge letting me off easy. When I was about 14 I had my bedroom in the basement. My mom and I had been arguing about something I don't remember what. I was talking back and generally being a jerk teenager when she said, "You son of a b." I replied with, "If I'm a son of a b, what does that make you?" It was one of those things where it popped in my head because I'd heard it used as a comeback before, but my internal filter wasn't working as fast as my mouth. I knew immediately that it was not going to end well. I ran and tried to hide from the incoming onslaught. I lived, but I saw my life flash before my eyes in the time it took her to descend the stairs. To be fair, mom walked herself into that one. I called my teacher gay in like 5th or 6th grade. I didn't mean it in a negative way. My uncle is gay and I thought it was cool my teacher was too. My teacher was not gay. The school spun it out to make me sound homophobic. I really did just think the teacher was gay and thought it was cool at the time. I still don't know why I was grounded and why no one believed me when I told them I didn't think it was a bad thing. LOL. I was grounded for like 3 months. He was gay. Ran my dad's Mustang through the garage door when I was 14. He was displeased, but I didn't get in trouble because he didn't tell me to put it in neutral when I tried starting it. I once had a house party while my parents were away. Red wine and an egg ended up on the cream carpet. I remember ringing my grandma and saying, how would you get an egg and red wine stain out of the carpet? It's not an egg or wine, so don't worry. But I was about 9 years old shopping at Party City with my mom and 4-year-old sister. We walked near an aisle full of Halloween masks, so I snuck over and put on the scariest one I could find. I waited for my mom and sister to almost reach the end of one aisle until I started a full-on, intentionally loud sprint their way. At the very last second, my sister turns around to see a demon screaming at her about 6 inches from her face. I've never seen so much true fear in someone's eyes and I felt so awful. I had never really felt bad for picking on my younger sister until that moment. My mom was furious with me, rightfully so, and swore that she and my dad were going to scare me even worse than I scared her. For years I was checking around corners and terrified to take the trash out at night. I even resorted to a nightlight for far too long than I would like to admit. It wasn't until I was about 20 years old when I finally told them that I had been afraid they were going to scare me for literally half my life. They didn't even remember me scaring my sister at all and never made an attempt to scare me. But they had me scared for 10+ years, so I think it's safe to say that they got me back. Early 2000s. I was in high school. My parents were separated and my dad was trying to talk me through some video driver issues from a few states away. He'd called while I had been familiarizing myself with a gentleman's special interest website. Dad gets a little frustrated, tells me to launch VNC and accept a session. Suddenly, my mouse is moving on its own. True horror dawned to me as my dad says, "Alright, let me see what's going on," and the mouse minimized the control panel, revealing a browser open to a gallery of a splendidly disrobing Canadian starlet. The longest pause over the phone in my life. I moused over to the browser's X and closed the window in dead silence, and then Dad started laughing. Like he hurt himself. He was hoarse and winded by the time he was done. Made a couple settings adjustments, fixed the video problem, and closed the VNC connection. Never said a word about it. And that was how I learned remote desktops were a thing. My mom told me to use the plastic golf balls, but I liked how far the real ones flew. Took a swing and dented my dad's brand new 2006 diesel F250. Literally got it 3 days before the incident. Assuming my life was over, I packed my bags to go live with my friend Tyler, who lived up the road. Refilled a butane lighter I wasn't supposed to have. After overfilling it, I immediately lit it, igniting the pool of liquid butane that had covered my bedroom carpet and burning a hole dead center of the room that couldn't be covered with furniture. I had this toy that was a little concave circular rubber thing that you could place on the ground and it would invert its concavity and spring up into the air. I had the bright idea of putting this toy on my dad's head when he was faced away from me. It then springs up into the air off my dad's head. He turned around and looked at me with the most pee-off face I had ever seen. I knew I was fricked. He smacked me right across the face. I tried it on my head later that night and it didn't really hurt, but I guess it just surprised him. Age 10, got in a spat with my siblings and mum sent me to my room. Was still angry, so proceeding to take it out on bedroom window. When the window inevitably shattered, I hid in my wardrobe fearing the end of my young life. Growing up in a time and place where corporal punishment was very much accepted, Dad gave me 6 of the best with the slipper for my troubles, and pocket money was not seen until the cost of the window had been covered. Not me, but an old friend of mine. When we were about 12, she called me absolutely hysterical. I finally got her to calm down to tell me what happened. Her sister, who was maybe 14, wouldn't leave her alone, was just being rude. So to get away, she went to her room and locked the door. Her sister followed her and kicked a hole in the door. It was really hard at the time not to laugh at the situation. She was convinced her parents were going to ground her for life. Her life was over. Nothing I could say to her would calm her. Her life was over as far as she was concerned. No, she didn't end up getting in trouble, but her sister did. Her parents were older parents and a little strict, but nothing abusive or crazy strict. Little bro climbed on the sink while I was on the toilet. We were like 5, so screw privacy, and I just kinda pushed his foot off of the sink. I don't even know why. Spur of the moment. I didn't think much about it. Well, he fell down and hit his head pretty bad. Had to be brought into the hospital. I remember my older brother casually asking, "So, you want your gravestone to be silver or gold?" Good times, good times. My bedroom was upstairs, and it would get really hot, so I had an air conditioner in the window all summer. I had 2 friends over, and somehow we had a necklace that belonged to a girl we didn't like. We decided that it would be a good idea to throw it out the window. 9-year-old girls are petty, apparently. The plan was that I would hold the air conditioner. Friend 1 would open the window, and friend 2 would throw the necklace out. Well, turns out air conditioners are heavy as heck, so of course it fell. It landed on the stairs to the back door, and both the air conditioner and stairs were destroyed. I freaked out and started saying my parents were gonna make me do chores for my entire life to pay for it. I ran and hid in the woods and bawled. My parents weren't even mad. My dad said, "It's just an air conditioner. We're just glad no one was hurt." Looking back, I really admire them for their reaction. We weren't doing well financially, and it would have been really easy to get mad at me for being freaking stupid and ruining an expensive appliance. We didn't even have to replace the air conditioner because my dad is a wizard and fixed it. Hesitating between 2 of them, when I managed to release the handbrake of the car. I was 8, and the car went straight into the gateway, pushing it past the metal thing that blocked it. Or when both me and my friend, around the same age as the one thing above, both lied to our moms to go out on Halloween alone. We said to my mom that it was my friend's mom taking us, and to my friend's mom that it was my mom taking us. Obviously they called each other. I was good friends with a kid that was trouble. One day we are at his place, part of a massive apartment complex. This kid takes out some pieces of paper and lights them and drops them on a wooden deck by a pool house. As he does, a security officer there comes out of the restroom. Right away, he nabs us both. Cops are called. Parents are called. As we are explaining to the cops what's up, my parents are obviously disappointed. By most measures, I was a great kid. The other was not. The city wants to arrest and charge us both with attempted arson. My parents talked to the officer and explained that I probably had nothing to do with it and didn't know what was going on, which was true. I'm taken home and grounded for 2 weeks. Since it's a weekend, I'm bored in my room. So I do what any good kid would. LOL. I request a box of trash bags. I proceed to clean my room and closet out, marking bags for donation and trash, and place them outside my room. I was released on good behavior, and couple hours later, they knew I had nothing to do with it, but wanted to drive home the importance of choosing quality friends. It was the only time I was grounded. My friends and I decided to go egg the house of this kid who always bullied us growing up. Instead of just doing a drive-by, we decided it'd be a better idea to combat park, reverse into a spot so you can leave easily, on a street next to the target house, and just quietly walk out front to egg it. When we got to the house, all the lights were off as it was pretty late at night. We all looked at each other and simultaneously pulled our arms back ready to throw the eggs. As we were all mid-throw getting ready to release our eggs, we hear a voice from the porch. "I wish you would egg my house." Before we could react to it, our eggs were already being launched at the house. We immediately took off while the bully's dad chased after us. I had never ran so fast in my life. The entire time I was thinking my mom is going to freaking kill me. We managed to get into the car, but as my friend put it in gear, the kid's dad jumped on the hood. I screamed for him to just hit the gas, which he did, and his dad kinda flew off before we got any speed. We managed to not get caught, but frick, it was close. As soon as I read drive by I forgot about the egg part and was like, wow, that's ballsy. Don't think I've ever seen someone admit to murder on Reddit before. My mom found my stash of weed with roaches and cigarette stubs. I was out then with my friends, so she called me and she screamed, come home right now. I froze with fear. We had to make up a story that exact moment. So I used to hide my weed in the box my phone came in that had all the instruction booklets and crap on top with some place under it. I had just come home from college for vacation, so I decided to tell her that my roommate was a smoker and he had put all of that in my phone box that I brought home without opening. Since I am not currently buried 100 feet deep in our backyard, you probably understand that she bought it. However, I had to throw away the entire box while she watched, so I lost a lot of weed. I was 13. I had my first serious girlfriend as an 8th grader and we had sex. This started happening about halfway through the school year and near the end of it, she told me she thought she was pregnant. By this point, a lot of the staff at school knew to some extent what was going on. 13-year-olds aren't exactly sneaky about crap like this. Who would have thought? And she ended up going to the school counselor. She basically had a long talk with us about relationships and sex and if we used protection. Yes, in case you're wondering. And she basically said, look, both of you are smart kids. I think you've taken this thing too far. But it's too late now obviously. If she is pregnant, I'll have to call both your parents. If she isn't, this stays between us. But please, be more careful. Well, 3 weeks and like a million pregnancy tests later we were sure she was not pregnant. It was the most tense 3 weeks of my life and I was sure my parents would freaking kill me. Oh, this is my time to shine. I was such a little crap as a teenager, so I have many of these stories on mobile, so sorry for any poor formatting. My parents were pretty strict and enforced a super early bedtime all throughout high school, like being in bed by 8 PM early, which didn't bode well for any form of social life I wanted to have during the school week. To set the stage, I grew up in a 1-story ranch-style house where the garage was attached to the kitchen and my parents' bedroom was on the other side of the house. I used to sneak into our garage where my mom's car was parked after I was supposed to be asleep and would cram myself in the back floorboard behind the driver's seat so that I could talk to my boyfriend on the phone. I always left the garage light on, cause this was when I was in like 7th grade and a dark garage is scary, and the door unlocked so I could get back inside. One night my stepdad must have gotten up to get a drink of water, noticed the garage light was on, turned it off and then locked the door to get back into the house. 7th grade me of course wasn't smart enough to think to bring a spare key out with me just in case I needed it. So now I was locked in a pitch black garage with no way to get back inside. I called my older sister, who was away at college at the time, in a panic. She laughed heartily at my misfortune and didn't offer much assistance. I put my thinking cap on and devised a plan. I opened the garage just enough to where my big butt head could fit under it, and with hopes that it wouldn't wake my parents in the back of the house, rolled out into the night ninja style, traipsed my butt through our garden peering under statues trying to find our hidden spare key, rolled back into the garage, shut the door, and entered the house. Snuck back into my room and into my bed with my parents none the wiser. Definitely slept in a small pile of dirt, leaves, sweat and probably some bugs, but more importantly my butt never got caught. GG. When I was 16, my Catholic mother did a random search of my phone, which she never did. She found that I had been talking to men that were way older than me in a sexual way. She also saw pictures I sent and received. I truly felt all of the life in my body leave me that day. I felt like she was going to kick me out or become severely overprotective. Luckily, after a trip to the mental hospital, getting proper help for my manic depression and anxiety disorders, and a lot of honesty, she accepted my situation as what it was: sexual abuse. I stole my grandparents' book for a joyride and it ran out of gas in front of the house while they were standing outside watching me drive it into the driveway. When I was 15 and had a learner's permit, I stole my mom's car and picked up my friends to go to a midnight movie. Another car hit us and the cops came. My parents were out of town for the weekend and this was only Friday night. I got a ticket and for some reason they let me drive my friends home. I parked the wrecked car in the garage and waited for my parents to come home Sunday afternoon. Worst weekend ever. When my mom counts from 3 to 1 when it's 2 your mind is like oh crap and 1 is do what she wants are gonna die anyway. Never went past 1 though. I think when kids actually go past 1 it's a surprise to the parents and probably don't know what to do after. Oh man. In my rebellious teenage years I would have interrupted her on the countdown and been like skip to the punishment or just said 0. I was a stubborn kid lol. Had my driver's license for a month when I was 17. I ran a red light and T-boned a brand new Jaguar convertible. The lady had the car for 2 days, and it was dang near totaled. I drove away with almost no damage. Some plastic trim fell off. Gotta love those old steel bumpers. My parents thought their insurance would go through the roof because I was on their plan. I paid for my share. Luckily it didn't go up at all. In the backyard hitting tennis balls with golf clubs back and forth with my brother. Club slips out of my hand, hits the side of the house and lands on our glass patio table. Shattered it. We just looked at each other for a second before he started smiling and walking back into the garage. I started wearing orthodontic braces in elementary school. The braces included a retainer, which was removed during meals. I forgot the retainer on my cafeteria tray during lunch and knew my mom would be angry because braces were expensive as frick. I was so upset I cried and insisted that I be allowed to check the cafeteria trash to find the retainer. The janitor, who was very patient, actually let me dig through the cafeteria trash. Who knows what he thought about the request. I didn't find the retainer. My mom wasn't even that mad. I just got accepted to a college I didn't think I was going to get accepted to, so my friends and I threw a high school graduation college acceptance party. We were sitting around a fire drinking beer and having fun, and once the parents went to sleep we bust out the weed. Me and my high school buddies really liked our pot and we really liked our music, so we sat in my car and started to hotbox and listen to music in my buddy's driveway. After about 30 minutes of music jamming and getting completely and totally ripped, one of my friends notices some lights. He goes, "Hey, what are those lights?" Oh crap, I tease the cops. In one sweeping motion I turn off my music and turn off the car and crack the windows to let the smoke out. We all huddle down with our heads in our laps, completely silent. We sit like this without saying a word for what feels like an hour. Probably only 10 minutes. Meanwhile I'm thinking I am going to get arrested and never get student loans and my parents are going to kick me out. On and on my paranoia is fooled by the drug use to the point I think I'm going to cry. Finally the lights pull away and we wait an extra 5 minutes and decide it's time for bed. When I go inside, one of the kids at the party says, "Hey, did you guys see that ambulance? Apparently my neighbor had a heart attack." My fricked up friend told us cops were coming and it was an ambulance. We sat hiding in my car for what felt like a lifetime, hiding from paramedics. My friends and I went to a local arts music festival. After an entire day and night of enjoying the event, we head back to our spot and my friend asks if he can borrow my car and make a quick stop at a store. My car was a 15-minute walk from the festival and the store was about 10 minutes from my car. He left at 7 AM and said he'd be back in an hour tops. I expected to be woken up at 8 AM by his return with my keys. I slept till almost 10 that morning and realized something was weird since my friend hadn't returned and his phone was dead. So the rest of the group pack up and walk to a separate car we brought and drove to the store to find him. As we pull into the lot we see a state trooper's flashing lights and my car on the back of a tow truck. Friend had fallen asleep driving and run into a ditch. Luckily he was okay, but being a young teen with my car now being towed with who knows what inside of it only exacerbated things. One time my cousin and I made some prank calls when we were 8. It was silly and stupid, and pretty typical of kids to do at the time. We didn't say anything awful. Mostly, "Is your refrigerator running?" sort of dumbassery. We forgot about it until a week later, when the cops showed up to my cousin's house. Apparently one of the guys we prank called said that we threatened to bomb his house and kill his wife and he feared for his life, which absolutely did not happen. He tried to press charges, and we had to explain everything to the police. Luckily as soon as they found out our ages, they dropped it all, but my cousin and I weren't allowed to use a phone for over a year. In college I was taking a summer class, and had made a study guide. I knew the professor, He was a super nice guy who let me take the test in a separate room due to extenuating circumstances. Well, by midway through cranking out the test when I realized that the study guide I made was chilling in my back pocket still from the morning of cramming. You can see where this is going. I made the extremely stupid decision to pull it out and cheat. I am not sure why, but it happened. He came back to check on me, caught me, took the test away and said come by my office later. I had some serious freakouts for a few hours until the appointed time. I figured he'd turn me into the school, which was definitely grounds for expulsion depending on how the school decided to handle it. My parents would have lost their absolute minds if I got kicked out. He ended up being super cool. Like super cool. He knew it wasn't normal for me, that it had been a screw up, and that I'd learn from it. Gave me a 0 on the test, meaning I had to pretty much ace everything else just to pass, which I did, and said if I ever hear from other professors that they caught you doing anything remotely academically dishonest, I'll turn you in with this time as well. 2 at once was definitely going to cause expulsion. Never touched it again, learned from it and moved on. Super great professor. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.